Hello, I'm Mike Jones from FCSI's Foodservice Consultant magazine. We're here hosting this FCSI panel session here at the FoodSpace headquarters in beautiful Boise, Idaho. This particular episode is very kindly supported by Tucs, and today we're addressing the issue of cook-chill technology and why investing in cook-chill can solve a plethora of issues when it regards to labor and operational challenges. To do that, I'm delighted to be joined by two leading voices in this sector. I'll ask them to introduce themselves and we can get underway. Renee, let's start with you first, please.
Yeah, hi, good morning. I'm Renee Palmer. I'm Associate Principal with FoodSpace.
Fantastic. Thank you, Renee. And Rob?
And I'm Rob Mattoch. I'm the VP of Marketing for Tucs Equipment. We're an American manufacturer of complete cook-chill systems.
Wonderful. And thank you for your support, Rob. Let's get things underway. Renee, if you could start first, maybe before we get into the technology of cook-chill and the benefits and the advantages it can give to operators, can you maybe just set the scene and sum up maybe some of the challenges that operators are currently facing in the back of house? What sort of pain points are they experiencing at the moment, would you say, in the industry?
Yeah, so I would say, a couple of top three come to mind specifically. So labor being the biggest, it's just really hard right now to attract and attain that labor pool. And so, that's always a challenge, especially as it comes to, the production side of things.
Sure.
The other one is the raising cost of food and inflation, how that, kind of spills into those really tight margins. And then, another thing that we're seeing is that sustainability factor too. So we're seeing a bigger push towards, energy efficient equipment, but then also, equipment that can, reduce down on some of that food waste.
Fantastic. Great summation. Thank you. Rob, does that chime with the experience and the feedback that you're getting from operators about the challenges they're experiencing?
Absolutely. And in that order as well, right? That labor being a big part, keeping those people that you want to keep in position. I think nobody ever wants to be in a position where they are hiring someone just to fill a slot and they're not the right person for their company, their culture, their organization.
Beautifully set the scene for us. We understand the challenges that operators are facing. Let's talk about some of the solutions that are out there, and cook-chill really is one of those. Rob, could you tell us about the technology itself? What is cook-chill, and how can it bring to bear, and how can it answer some of these challenges that we've just described?
Right. So, cook-chill basically is you're going to cook and prepare the product ahead of the service window, ahead of when you need it. And the beauty of that is you're really offsetting the time margins and the constraints that you have within that kitchen and that organization. And what's important is this is nothing new. You don't go to a restaurant, order a short rib, and spend 4 hours in the dining room while you wait for them to prepare it in the back of the house, right? It makes no sense. What's beautiful is if you hit certain markers or spots along that process, you can not only offset that time period that you're cooking, but you also can increase that shelf life dramatically, sometimes as much as 29 or 30 days through pasteurization. And if you take the combination of being able to move that production time and also increase that shelf life, you give that operator a lot of tools to meet those challenges that we're talking about, but also opportunities to do things like centralization or automation.
Absolutely. Renee, this sounds fantastic. So what kind of feedback are you getting from operator clients that you're working with here at FoodSpace? What kind of benefits would operators receive from that kind of technology?
Yeah, so one thing stands out specifically in my mind and what FoodSpace, some of the kitchens that we design, we call them hybrid kitchens, in which there's no actual cooking on site. So there's some rethermalization, there's that hot and cold holding, but cooking is done in a commissary elsewhere. And so, that plays into, having that food, rapidly chilled down and ready to go to disperse into some of these hybrid kitchens from that commissary. So, that consistency is maintained, that quality is maintained. We're not sacrificing any kind of ingredients in that kind of aspect. And so there's really some great applications for cook-chill technologies and equipment, for some of those hybrid kitchens that depend on those commissaries.
Absolutely. Rob, let's maybe look at the whole aspect of how rapid chilling can help the whole food safety piece as well. What are the kind of benefits towards food hygiene legislation, towards things like HACCP requirements? What are the benefits there?
So, I mean, I think the first thing is in that cook chill process, you have the ability to centralize production. Mm-hmm. And when you centralize production, then you can put your best people on that product, which automatically increases the sanitation throughout the whole process, right? The second part of it is, since you're not trying to multitask in that space, multiple different recipes at one time, you can really limit the allergens that are around you and the environment. Lastly, because you control that one product, and you can do good data recording throughout the entire process, mm-hmm. you can really assure that you've cooled that product safely and efficiently, which is really 90% of food sanitation when it kind of all boils down to it.
Absolutely. Renee, how can that kind of technology, how can Cook Chill also provide menu expansion opportunities here for clients, particularly to Rob's point about centralized production? How can that help high volume kind of operations?
Yeah. So what comes to mind, I mean, especially like, that menu flexibility is just the ability to do large volume in advance. So you're doing a lot of preparation ahead of time. You're able to have more expansive menu in terms of what is then being distributed offsite, rather than focusing on like the al menu, the busyness of it. I think it also just kind of plays into the factor of taking some of those stress points off of, that production side of things. Sure. And then also focusing more on like guest experience and, the plating, the presentation, and some of that other stuff that falls into, the front of house aspect.
Absolutely. So it can take stress away, but also, Rob, how can it offer greater flexibility, particularly when it comes to things like maybe meeting more diverse customer preferences?
Absolutely. So we do a lot of work with B2B businesses, and their kind of dining, corporate dining. And what we see a lot is these organizations are trying to serve very authentic dishes to individuals that are looking for an experience of home and that sort of items. When you can, again, bring in your best people to work with that product and you can control the environment, then you can also bring in the appropriate ingredients and do the right techniques in that process. And you're not trying to replicate it over multiple locations. Yeah. You're just doing it there. I think the other point I'd like to add to it is if you're an organization and what you're trying to do is offer a diverse menu or offer new products, you're not trying to train every single kitchen on how to make a dish. You're making that dish and you're sending it out, and you can really be authentic in that product.
Yeah, absolutely. Renee, you mentioned right at the very top of the conversation the whole labor piece, the labor challenge, labor crisis, let's be honest. How do you think this kind of preparation workflow can ultimately help the labor issue here as well?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, some of the burnout that we see in these kitchens and also shifting focus back on that, like that guest experience or some of that more like culinary aspect. And so if we can take some of that, main production piece, into some of those like downtime within the kitchen rather than some of those peak times. So again, like instead of focusing on al menu, right, we have those, the production already done, ready to go. And then we can then focus on some of the other, passions that a lot of these culinary people have, right? It's that guest interaction. It's that, let's understand what they're asking for, what they're looking for in these menus. It's that menu development. So I think it alleviates some of that, like go factor to allow for a little bit more strategic planning and operation in the back of house. And then also to focus, some of that attention more in the front of house too.
Yeah, absolutely. Renee talked about alleviating different pressures. I'm talking maybe alleviating some costs here as well, the impact on labor, but also what kind of impact is there on cost savings for energy usage here, Rob?
So, I mean, anytime you're working with economies of scales, you'll get additional benefits in the process. And that's no different in this situation. Also, when you're looking at centralizing your production, you're now offsetting the kitchen space that you would have in probably a much more expensive per square foot type environment. Right. You're also offsetting the additional equipment in each one of those kitchens and the prep space for that. The other thing that's really interesting is it then gives you an opportunity to use that space in other means that are more appropriate for the business.
Okay, fantastic. Renee, let's talk about food waste. What kind of ramifications does this have on the whole food waste element? And I'm thinking things like inventory management must be perhaps a bit more efficient with this when you know exactly what to expect through the whole kind of preparation process.
Yeah. So Cook Chill will help a lot with food waste reduction. It also helps with, that production piece, the menu flexibility. And so, having the ability to, again, like you have your consistency, you have the safety, you're not sacrificing the ingredients, you still can have that high quality things, the high quality food ingredients. And so, you can have, to Rob's point earlier, an extended shelf life too. So as they're thinking about, the production side of things, the demand side of things, that also, trickles into that food waste and that sustainability. And then it also affects the bottom line for the operator too, right? So less food waste is always the best thing to strive for.
Absolutely. Renee mentioned the word consistency there. What kind of impact can Cook Chill have on consistency of product, flavor, quality, texture? What about that whole element?
Yeah, so I mean, if you take 3 of the most trained culinarians out there and you have them make the same recipe, you're going to have a difference between each single recipe. And that's in the best environments and best control situations, which is pretty far from the real life environment that most operators are dealing with. So by having that product being made at one point and one size under very controllable situations, including being able to moderate or control weights, you really can produce a very, very consistent product.
Yeah, absolutely. Renee, you mentioned there about reducing stress in the kitchen. We're writing stories more than ever in the magazine about burnout in the industry and chef well-being and mental health issues. How can something like this technology really have an impact on that and help create perhaps a better working environment in the back of house area? What is the impact ultimately on chef well-being for this kind of technology?
Yeah, I think it kind of switches things into more of like a strategic operational plan rather than, some of the craziness that we may see. And so having a lot of your production done in those quieter hours ahead of time, right? That's always a big plus too. It goes back to, like, if we can do all of that production and then really focus on some of those like special one-offs, and then also, the guest interaction piece, and driving forward more like, that culinary creativity, I think that would help with that burnout piece.
Absolutely. Rob, where do you see all of this innovation going? What's the kind of the impact this innovation is going to have, and why is this a very exciting area of growth and opportunity for kitchens?
I think ideas kind of come in cycles, and we're definitely right now in a cycle where Cook Chill is becoming a really dominant force and a really big solution. There's a lot of external factors that are leading us to that point. As far as innovation goes in the space, I think increased automation, increased record keeping and controls, and the ability to collect data and become more and more efficient as we control all those costs that we're talking about and those concerns that we talked about. Because otherwise, there's not a lot of other techniques we can use to control those items.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Renee, where do you see clients investing in this in the future? Why do you think this is something that's a technology that's here to stay? Why do you believe in it?
So I mean, it can hit all sectors. So B&I, like we talked about, especially those, that have multiple campuses, multiple points of distribution too. That's always great. Hospitals, higher education. I mean, it could really hit all sectors. So I think, being sector agnostic is super great and important. I think it's definitely here to stay because of that labor piece, specifically in my mind. I ever since COVID, we really haven't seen too much of an improvement as it relates to labor. And so I really do think that labor piece is going to continue to be a struggle, and having innovative equipment that, allows for just overall efficiency and operation, allows for that quality, that consistency, that safety piece. Those are all major important aspects of, the kitchen operations. And those are really honestly fundamentals. And so, having pieces of equipment like, the Cook Chill, super efficient and, really plays into several of the factors that we had talked about: food waste, i.e. bottom line, burnout, those kind of things.
Absolutely. In summary, then, the same question to both of you. Why do you think Cook Chill will continue to revolutionize operations in commercial kitchens? Where do you see this technology going?
Well, I think as people understand Cook Chill better and the benefits, and like I said earlier, this is nothing new. But as chefs become more proficient in operations, embrace this technology more, the quality of that product coming out will be so dramatically better. And really, we'll see the opportunities that this presents itself and how it can change that kitchen environment and increase sustainability and efficiencies.
Wonderful. Same question, Renee?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat similar answer too. It's about creating those efficiencies, maintaining that quality, maintaining all of those standards.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, I'd just like to thank Renee and Rob for being outstanding panelists today. A really interesting topic, clearly a technology to keep an eye on. And thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for watching.